get cooking. Move it a bit that way. Move it a bit more that way. A bit too far. There we go. Hello. How is everybody doing? How's things? How's life? How's the universe? How has your week been? Oh, where are we at? Hello, Ish. You're gonna miss a start making dinner. Fair enough. Food is important. And Zig says, "What's cooking?" Which is, I assume, both to Ish for what's for dinner and how's everybody doing. And good question. How is everybody doing? Um, I've finally had the electrician that I was meant to have in many months ago now, um, to come and do some things. Um, like make sure the house isn't a complete death trap. I mean it is, but less so. Hello, Michael. How you doing? How's things? How is everybody? How has everybody's week been? Um, ba 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 ba. Notification going out. Wonderful. Thank you. Um, yeah. How is everybody? Let me make that a bit wider. There's normally music behind the stream, but since the electrician has been around, my NAS, which houses that music, um, is currently off, or at least it's booting up because I only remember that it was off. Uh, about if I can just make out the sundial here, about 10 seconds ago. Living on the edge, exciting times for Andy. Well, yeah, I mean, I found out that my washing machine and fridge were powered off of essentially just a kettle lead, like a PC cable that both ends had been chopped off and then, like hooped from one socket through a wall to another. AKA not exactly what you call rated. Um, so yeah, that was good. Luckily, I mostly run that stuff off of solar now, so not too big of a problem. But uh, yeah, that's all fixed up now. Hello, John. How you doing? How's things? How's your week? Hope not as annoying as mine, especially at work tomorrow. Uh, my condolences. um, my week has been very disjointed because I've had an electrician round to fix up some of the atrocities in the property, as it were. Um, so I've been kind of a mix of not really being able to do much and kind of testing stuff and whatnot. So you'll see a couple of videos from this 4090 and Ryzen 7000 series PC soon. Um, I think I've got a monitor coming and a few other bits and pieces. So yeah, bit of a weird time at the moment. Um, yeah. Hello, Luca. How you doing? How's things? Disjointed. That's a new one for you, at least. Well, I mean, no, that's kind of That's a good definition of my life in general. um, yeah, I've kind of I've been waiting to have a normal week for about a year and a half. um, so yeah. But I think it was last Friday I shipped a load of my OSRTT Pro units to buyers, as it were. So that's good. It's this is a unfortunately a little tricky for me to manufacture. Um, with a few little specifically there's one tiny chip. In fact, I can show you. Um, that chip there is a I think 28 pin chip. You can see in reference to the size of my finger, it's freaking tiny. Um, and yet, you can see how slim it is. You can just about make out the little tiny little pads on there. Yeah, it's a massive pain. And annoyingly, even though I have the SMD stencil, as in basically a piece of laser cut stainless steel that you place on top and then you wipe solder paste onto, this nice grey stuff. Not to be confused with thermal paste, because this stuff does heat up and then melts. Uh, this basically ends up either bridging connections or not making connections, and yeah, I keep needing to pull them off and then clean them up and then put them back on. I fixed a couple of them, but there's still three that definitely aren't happy at the moment, which is quite annoying. So yeah, but I'm getting through them. You start at 7 a.m. Melbourne time. A lot more reasonable. Well, you can thank whoever decided that the clock should change at various points in the year. Use Antec Flux. A lot better. I mean, I have Flux. I have a old pot of the stuff. One. But this is not solder. It is a funny colour though. I haven't used much of it. Relatively new pot. But yeah, bit of a weird one. And you're still young. The wait is real. Well, yeah. It doesn't help that. Sorry. I do a relatively weird profession, as it were. Sitting here writing stuff all day. Uh, and do weird projects like this, and I'm not mentally stable most of the time. Hello Ish, welcome. Antec comes in a syringe, easy to apply and use. I have seen plenty of the liquid or more liquidy flux pastes, but um, it is not like the solder paste has rosin in it as part of its makeup and does come in a nice syringe. In fact, it is 42% tin and 58%. What's BI? I can never remember that. And he does fashion. We know he's not mentally stable. Oof. I'm not mentally stable in the kind of internal way rather than the external, and I make it everybody else's problem way. Didn't Coolmaster ditch syringes for better parental approval? I mean, quite possibly. I do still have some of their like master paste. Switch. That's I knew you were going for a word that made sense, but brain wouldn't give me a better solution for you. Yeah, I still have some of their master paste in the tub there. But luckily, solder paste isn't something that kids need to interact with too much. Although, where is it? The leaded solder is definitely kid friendly. I actually just bought some more of that because it's a lot better than the lead free crap. Yes, no, it's solder because I'm talking about the painfully tiny little chip, that one there, that I keep needing to desolder and resolder to make things work. I had time today, so did a 150-kilometer run in my small 125. Really wrung its neck. Still didn't manage to do over 110 kilometers an hour or 70 miles an hour. Helped with clearing my head though. Fair, nice. I mean, 125s are great for sort of city usage. High speed usage is not something that I would attribute to the 125 as being especially good at. Um, so yeah, fair. My SV650S Suzuki uh, with the throttle restrictor that I have to have because I got my license when I was 21, 22. That will do 111. uh, and the S4 does at least 150. Yes, I found that out on the track officer. It's a Yamaha XSR 125, so not skinny tires, a bit more stable than average. Well, that's good. At least it's not one of the, like, basically a bicycle with a 125 engine in it, uh, ripping around. That's good. But yeah, in a year or so, gonna get something along the lines of an MT-07 or an XSR 700, hopefully. Nice. I learned to ride an MT-07. It was really good. One of the things that I found with the my SV650S is that it's a bit more tucked than a standard like naked bike. And so what I find is that I can't on a super or like a proper sports bike, you're basically lying on the tank, like your stomach is resting on the tank, or you're like lifting yourself up, and so you don't really need to support yourself in the bars. On a normal like street or adventure or naked bike, you're sat basically bolt upright, and so again you don't have any weight on the bars. But my bike is a bit of a weird mix where I'm slightly too far tilted forward to be sitting upright and have my weight just straight on the my uh seat, but also I'm not far enough forward that I can comfortably like rest on the tank. So I then end up putting quite a lot of weight through the bars, which is a bad thing for control because you're meant to be able to be light on the bars and counter steer, push one with the other. And so it's a bit of a weird position, and so I think whenever if I swap bikes, I think I'll swap to something a little bit more in the adventure class because most adventure bikes can still, ride the nuts off my SV650S, uh, but they're a little bit of a more comfortable riding position, and you can also stick some mud tires on it and go rip around the field, and it's kind of like the S4. It's a much better all rounder, um, which I think I tend to gravitate towards because I don't have the space, money, or all that much interest in having dedicated cars or bikes for specific activities. I would rather have one bike that can do everything mostly rather than attempt to have 10 bikes, that one for the street, one for track, one for off-roading, one for proper motocrossing, one whatever. um so yeah, and he needs long handlebars to sit back like an easy rider, also needs a seat back, and a Harley. I hate Harleys. No, I really don't like. Well, I don't like being loud and ostentatious. So that kind of rules out the whole chopper scene anyway. Um, but I like performance, and I know that Harleys aren't exactly slouches, but put it up against the GS. like a BMW GS 1000 or whatever. Yeah, and he's also not a retiree slash thug. True. Um, no, I hate being a disturbance as well. So yeah. Waiting for AMD stream at 8:30 a.m. I think is it the third? It is. That's a good point. I forgot that was on. Uh, when is that actually? Like, what time is it? Ba 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 ba. Wait, it's now, or was earlier? Currently, I can't tell. They've announced new cards: 7900 XTX, 24 gig of VRAM. Wow, and 7900 XT, 20 gig of VRAM. Also wow. 5nm compute die, 6nm memory cache IC die, so it is multi-chiplet, which is interesting. Ba, 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 ba. And that's it. So they're matching Nvidia. It's just the two top end cards, and they've gone with XT and XTX. Okay, all right, fine. Uh, ba, 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 ba. They have dedicated AI accelerators. That's interesting. 50% more performance per compute unit in ray tracing. DisplayPort 2.1, which is up to 8K 165 hertz or 4K 480 hertz. What? And a new media engine which includes 8K60 AV1 encode and decode. That's pretty sweet. Oh, and that's interesting. So they've decoupled the clock. So it's a 2.3 gigahertz shader clock speed and a 2.5 gigahertz front end clock speed. Interesting. Ba, 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 ba. Looking for a bit more specs on the new cards, but I don't see too much yet. Not sure. There you go. There's a small synopsis. Hello Harry. Uh, ba, 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 ba. AMD's on now. Yes, as we're talking. Or they've just been on? I don't know. Was it an hour ago? I don't remember. Yeah. I think it was an hour ago. So the rumored prior to the launch, the rumor says 12,288 cores for the XTX, which is a lot. But yeah. Oh right, it's being updated. Got you. So yeah, I think one of the bigger takeaways from that would be that it is a chiplet style GPU, so there is effectively the compute die and the memory die. The memory die is only 6 nanometer, which I assume is from Samsung, because I think TSMC is 7 and 5, whereas Samsung offers 6. Um, so that's kind of interesting. That would mean that uh, they're multiple sourcing the dies, which is impressive. Uh, Any new updates? The 1700 XTX is 1.7 times, or up to 1.7 times faster than the 6950 XT. Nice. That's decent. That is 1.7 times in Cyberpunk. 1.5x in COD Modern Warfare 2, the newer one. Although, if you watched Hardwarebox's video, the AMD cars seem to be currently running away with it with that game, which is interesting. 1.5x Watch Dogs Legion, Resident Evil 1.5, Metro Exodus with ray tracing 1.5, Doom Eternal with ray tracing 1.6. Damn. That's not bad. And then the XT has 84 compute units, 2 GHz game clock, 20 gigabytes of VRAM, which is sweet. And possibly a more important part, the total board power is 300 watts. Wow. I mean, compare that to the 4090, right? Which is 450 if you don't overclock it. Or up to 600 if you do. That's big. Although it'll be interesting. So the XTX, the top end one, has 355 watts of total board power and 96 compute units at 2.3 gigahertz. Not bad. Thank you very much, Harry. That's a great compliment. Hello, Yana the user. Any tips on French door fridge, the larger 2-door one? Do you know, I'm not a fridge reviewer. So I'm not sure, I'm afraid. The Galax Hall of Fame 4090 hit 1,000 watts. Jesus. What was that with 2 of the fire burning connectors? PS, a new SLS or 911 GT3 RS? I have a soft spot for the GT3 RS, so swaying towards that of the 2. Harry says SLS. Fair. Fair. Yeah. And so both cards have AV1 decode and encode, which is great. DisplayPort 2.1, and lower board power than NVIDIA by a long shot. And I'm going to be very interested to see if they do mention the 4090. Apparently they had a dig at the 4090 power connector issues, which is nice. But it'll be interesting to see if they do any comparisons to the 4090 in their presentation deck here or not. But yeah, interesting. Yeah, 12-volt plugs power it up, so 1,200 watts available. It's just insane. And we spoke about it a bit, but the power connector is, I just think it's a really weird design choice to go with a smaller connector for more power, like 4x the power. And I know that it's technically within Amphenol's ratings and all, but it's Molex and GST wouldn't run the same amount of current through a connector. Like, I'm sure it's fine, but at the same time, why? Why not have a dedicated 24-pin connector in its own power supply? I guess it only needs the 12-volt rail and no 5 or 3.3 volts. Well, sure, it does complicate things a bit. um, but yeah, the I feel like there was a better way to do connections than that, you know? Like there has to have been a better connector to use. Like I guess they just wanted it to be, modern and sleek and therefore smaller, but to push 4x the power through a connector that is physically smaller than an 8 pin. I don't know. Damn, you could power an electric bike with that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for context, at peak, my 3 solar panels produce about 1400 watts. So, um, at peak, my solar panels could only just run that system while running. Oh dear. Um, and they're talking about 8K gaming on the 7900 XTX. Why? uh, uh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why. I would hate to guess. I just fried my 12-volt by 4 splitter power adapter yesterday. Card fine, plugs a bit stuffed, so Nvidia want the whole lot back on a Gigabyte 4090 base card. Ouch. Was it in funny or anything? Because uh, I know Igor's Lab dissected one and had a pretty weird solder pad arrangement. I would assumed like when I was going through my research and whatever for the video I did, I would assume that it was crimped connectors because that's how you do cables, especially high power ones. But yeah, no, it was soldered. But also compare that to Gamers Nexus, who did a video a few days later, I think like Monday or whatever this week. They had uh, completely different connectors, or different build quality, as it were, much better build quality, and they couldn't make theirs fail. Uh, so I still kind of, well, I stand by my video in the sense that I think the connector is a bad choice outright, but on top of that, um, my conjecture of I think that it's the connector's too short, and so any amount of bad connection of pulling to one side, whatever, is going to cause bad connections on those absolutely microscopic pins, and so that's going to eat the thing. On top of the fact that it's a 4090 and it's drawing 450 watts through the connector, so yeah. On a test bench, going straight with a slight bend, so no strain in the plug or socket. Yes, the plug is a stupid choice. Yeah, fair. I haven't actually seen. Is it only the four connector plugs that are failing? Because the one that I have is a 3 connector plug. Um, but I don't know which cards come with 3 and which cards come with 4. I'm in Manchester. Send air support or failing that tech support. Nice. Why? This chat's slow and boring. Welcome to the stream. Glad to have you. Zig, yes it is. Would you mount it vertically or even if you'd buy a liquid cool one? So the very first card that was on posted on Reddit with the melted connector had a vertical GPU, and my conjecture in the video was that the power connector goes in and like curls both not only back but sideways, and so that sort of sideways load, even if it's not actually pulling on it that hard, just that sort of tilt is uh, potentially going to cause failures with that much current going through absolutely tiny connections. Um, so personally, especially with a 4090 with that much power going through it, I'm not sure that I'd be comfortable having that in my system because it's so like you just wouldn't want it to fail. It's obviously not like a complete fire hazard. You're not gonna wake up and find your house is on fire. Uh, it's mostly under load and all that anyway. But that sort of failure is not something you want to even consider. You don't want to entertain that idea. With something like the 4080 instead, where that's going to draw more like 300 or 350 watts or whatever instead of the 450, that is arguably more reasonable. I think we're going to see sort of less failures with those, but I still think that uh, if we can get some AIB cards that don't need that connector, that would be great. Um, uh, Richard doesn't seem to be having a good day. Um, Thanks for stopping by. um, I think the Gigabyte card may have a 3 plug. I'll check. Fair, yeah, because the card that's in this system is an MSI card. It's one of the, well, I mean, they're all massive as hell, but it's one of the chunky, like, non sort of reference design style ones. Um, yeah. Oh, AMD announced FSR 3.0, which is interesting because we've only just had 2.0. um, but yeah, temporal super resolution and fluid motion, which is interesting. I'll be interested to see what. Oh wow! Holy shit! So they're saying that FSR 3.0 delivers 2 times the performance of FSR 2.0. Wow, that's an uplift. um, but yeah, that is rather impressive. I'll be interested to see how that actually stacks up because we saw with DLSS 3.0 where the majority of the sort of performance improvements come from the interpolated frames, the fake frames where the graphics card takes in the current frame, waits a bit, takes in a new frame, and then builds a frame to match between the two and then sends you out the current one and then the interpolated one and then waits for the next one and then interpolates in between, which is uh, the it's good for hypothetical motion smoothing, but it's bad especially when you have any major, say, camera shifts and stuff where you get, it's trying to interpolate between two images, and if the two images are completely different, you're just going to get a garbled mess. um, so yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Also, it adds input latency because you have it's holding back frames to be able to process data between two, so it needs both of them before it can then send out the original one, as it were. So that is something that you wouldn't necessarily use in, say, competitive games, where you could use that FPS advantage. I suppose in the more story-driven games, something like Cyberpunk, where you maybe just want to crank up the settings to maximum, but you still want a playable FPS out of it. Uh, that sort of feature could be useful, but yeah, I mean, if FSR 3.0 doesn't do that, but still offers 2 times the performance, then that's not bad. While still looking good. That's the key thing. A high-end PC can use more power than my home freezer inverter. Yes, I mean my fridge freezer only draws 84 watts for 30 minutes an hour, so Yeah, most of my PCs use more power than that. Um, yeah. In fact, my air conditioning unit, which is just out of shots, but I have the remote for it. That draws about 800 watts when it's heat soaked and running for it. Um, so yeah, again, a lot of the new 4090 systems will draw more power than that. Um, Ryzen raided the channel with 7 viewers. Well, thank you very much. Do you have a raid set up? Not on Twitch, if that's what you mean. If you mean, like hard drive raid, then technically yes. I have a few NASs. I do mean that. In that case, no. I mean, nothing fancy, I'm afraid. When it comes to streaming, this is a part-time gig. uh, it's more about just having some fun and chatting with like-minded tech enthusiasts. No, my friend built myself a cellar that needs external cooling, weather terrain. It's a heavy-duty inverter. Ah, I see. Right, gotcha. Well, fair play. Nice. But also still, yes, that's the new systems draw a lot of power. I told them you know your tech. Well, thank you very much. I like to think that I do. um, was that one of the Intel branded aircon units for the 7990K chips or whatever was needed for that 2 kilowatt chiller? It was well, one sadly not. No, I that'd be fun. Um, and yeah, no, what chip was that? I swear it was more recent than like seven. I swear it was the last like couple of generations because it was a Xeon W um platform, wasn't it? It was like RG Dominus board something. Um, yeah, like 9000 series sounds more right. Yeah, can't remember. Have you had a retailer screw you over after returning an item? It got damaged in transit, even if you have photos of it packed and being packed showing no damage. I haven't. It depends who you're, dealing with, what sort of payment method you used. Paying with credit is uh, frustratingly a lot better because technically speaking, the credit card company is the purchaser in that case. And so they tend to be able to throw their weight around in giving you protections. Uh, whereas, okay, debit card, fair. Whereas debit cards, you're the one on the hook for it. At least, even with things like PayPal, you can file disputes and there's kind of an intermediary board. Whereas for someone like, well, if scan and you're paying with your debit card, realistically, beyond them uh, doing much about it, the only real options you have are like taking them to small claims court, which is not a feasible option for everybody. But yeah, did you pay for the return shipping? It was the Z690 formula. Do you know what they said was damaged about it once it arrived? What have they said about it being um when you presented the photos of it being packed and in good condition, or obviously if you're returning it potentially non-functional condition depending on how you're returning it, but or why you're returning it, but Yeah. And yeah, it depends what shipping was used, because when I ship my response time tools, I always pay for the extra insurance, as it were. So if it does get damaged, it is in theory covered, although in practice, Royal Mail lost my first unit that I sent to Linus. Great one to lose, I know. Uh, and I submitted a claim and they still haven't gotten back to me on that, which is just wonderful. Uh, DPD, they arranged, which is why I took photos. Well, in that case, they're like, if you say that it's shipping damage, then it's their job to tell, like, charge DPD for the value lost. Um, so yeah. How cheap can we make a power setup? As in for solar? Well, it depends how much power you want to generate. You can buy what I would call hobbyist grade solar panels. You know, the sort of 100-ish watt type ones. For I don't know, 50 or £100 at absolute most. Um, you can buy a like £20 PWM based charge controller, and you can buy a 12-volt lead acid battery and go to town. Well, I suppose then you've only got DC, then you need an inverter of some kind, but I mean, depends what you want to use the power for. But um, you can start from 1-200 total, uh, but you're not making all that much sort of useful power, as it were. I mean, it's fine for, I don't know, if you had a caravan or an RV, something like that, where you want to have a little bit of extra power coming in, that's not tied to, the engine that's connected or whatever, or grid hookups or something. And so if you want to be able to charge your phone or to run a games console or something for a little bit, that's fine. But um, yeah, if you want to make more what I would call useful power, um, it needs to be, well, the more panels you can get, the better. That's kind of what I'm not dealing with, if you know what I mean. But that's the crux of what I am experiencing at the moment, which is that especially in winter, obviously the panels are nowhere near as efficient as they are on a nice bright sunny summer's day, and so I'm only generating 3 or 4 kilowatt hours per day, which means I'm not making that much use out of that power with only 3 panels. Whereas, if you had a full roof full, that's a lot more likely to generate you considerable amount more power, even in winter, and be able to be more reliant on it. Um, but yeah, in winter it's a bit more difficult. And so, could you stream off of a solar setup in summer? Definitely, because in summer, even down to like 8 p.m., it's still sunny enough outside that I'm probably generating enough power to run, my monitors, my PC, my, camera and lights and all that sort of stuff. Uh, and that's not counting the fact that the battery will be full. Um, Whereas, on a winter day, like I said, I'm only generating 3 or 4 kilowatt hours per day. And so I'm using a lot of that in things like, the fridge and the washing machine and whatnot. So that uh, makes it a bit more difficult. Oh, The Radeon 17900 XT and XTX have been priced at $899 for the XT and $999 for the XTX, which I'm pretty sure is considerably cheaper than the 4090 and even the 4080. Ooh, that's interesting. Ooh, well, that's cool. No, they did arrange the shipping. It was the CPU socket cover that got loose and damaged the socket. DPD, they arranged it, which is why I took the photos. Scan will not talk to DPD as the outer box is not damaged. Got you. I think your only real chance is to either shout about it on the internet, which is terrible that that's, what occasionally needs to have to happen, or well, to keep fighting with them, or to maybe talk to citizens' advice to see what they would recommend in terms of further action. If there's any like boards or authorities that you can get in touch with to help kind of force their hand rather than like having to take them to court or whatever. So yeah. Oof, cheaper than the 3D printer 6900 XT I got. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the price anyone's going to actually pay. But yeah. You can use a legion of hamsters instead, I think. Oh dear. Yeah. Yeah, crazier. Unfortunately, that's one of the things where the individual has less power than the capital holder, and so it's an annoying, frustrating, unfortunate um, position to be in, I'm afraid. Usually MSRP plus roughly 20%. Yeah, sounds about right. How's At the Wheel going? Decent. I'm not sure what videos I have coming up next. I need to think of something over the weekend. But yeah, it's all right. There's always kind of an endless supply of things breaking on myself, my wife's, and my various friends' cars. So um, it's there's always more to do. uh, I have been in I've spoken to a few of the car companies to have some press fleet in for review. Um, the problem for me is that there I already spend a lot of my time and energy running, this channel. And so it's very difficult for me to take on the extra responsibility of having a uh, an entire car delivered. Because I've only got that for a week, so I have to be able to either preload videos, like pre-make videos for this channel, so that I can then have free time with when I have the car, or I have to do just juggle more things at once. Um, and on top of that, it's also I would say quite uncomfortable for me to talk to people I don't know these days. So that the social aspect that's required makes things more difficult as well. Thoughts on the end of the Fiesta? I saw that ish with the pun. Yeah, so the news is that Ford is killing the Fiesta. Assumedly because they're going to bring out a electric Fiesta, and they're going down the Apple route of you can have this or you can have nothing. Um, Also, probably to some degree because they want to be able to. They don't want you to be able to directly compare models because one of the easiest things to do is if you look at, I don't know, the Mini, right? They sell an electric Mini and they sell internal combustion engine Minis. But the electric Mini is a good bit more expensive than the internal combustion engine ones. And so it's very easy to compare the two and go, well, why would I get that one, right? So I would assume that to some degree they're kind of uh, culling that one so that there is only one option. If you want a small city car, you have to buy their electric one, or at least you want a small Ford city car, you have to buy the electric one. And they feel like making a new model for that is the best way to do that. Which I uh, I don't see as necessarily a bad thing, but I would say it's a shock if nothing else. Electric should be more expensive. You save on the fuel, no? Yeah. Well, yes and no. I mean, it's more expensive because you're essentially preloading all the fuel, because there's a different paradigm, as it were. In theory, the fuel should be cheaper, although the cost of the cost of everything's going up. Thanks, corporate greed. BP posted double the profits this quarter. Wonder why. But yeah. So yeah, it kind of depends. Speaking of wheels, if you want price to performance, great car, the Corvette C8 Stingray. If you could buy one here, sure. With its flat plane V8 crank. It's Putin's fault. Is it Putin's fault that BP made double the profits this year? Because I just thought that was corporate greed. No one has asked if Ryzen 5000 will be cheaper come Black Friday after the recent drops. I quite think so. I would think so. I think I might have seen that the 5800X 3D has come down in price as well, which is a fantastic chip, especially for gaming. So maybe. Obviously, you're buying into a dead platform at that point, obviously. But it's still a very good chip, and realistically, the majority of people tend to buy stuff, and use, especially CPUs, they tend to use them for a lot longer than, say, graphics cards. And so it's quite possible that you could buy, say, a 5800X 3D and then not upgrade until AM5 is a dead platform, right? So, yeah. Uh, da, 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 da. Sorry, Chris. No worries. My psychic powers will prevail as always. uh, um, ba, 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 ba. Yeah, yeah, it's not our usual bag. Um, Uh, so what do we think of the new AMD graphics card? um, I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform. There was apparently no comparisons to the 4090, so I imagine they're probably quite close. Although the price difference is going to be the the big sort of differentiator there. We all think they're the Ryzen of GPUs. Fair. A little bit buggy, but good performance. Um, tech quotes in Egypt. Some views there in the same boat as Andy with MSI, but with AMD, Intel, Nvidia. Please check them out. I saw what's it? Tech Linked talk about that. And yeah, so what was it? I think it's AMD weren't providing samples, and places like people like Nvidia and Intel are pressuring to either like not release or take down reviews, or only sort of put out positive stuff. It's one of the things that the through building the response time tool, I've had a lot of I would say interest from creators in or like reviewers and people in Asia in general, and the kind of overwhelming consensus that I have heard from them is that the media landscape sort of in that region is very different to the media landscape we have in the Western mode, as it were, and they have time and time again said that everything is what you would call paid media. It is all sponsored without saying it's sponsored. It's all the companies sort of have a firm say in what you get to say. And so with the response time tool, them just posting the data kind of gives them a good way to be a bit more honest without breaking the rules, as it were. So I'm not surprised in the slightest that even companies like AMD, well, I suppose AMD was refusing to provide samples, but Intel and Nvidia were actively interfering, as it were. But yeah, I definitely I support the cause of being open and honest, and I do not envy the fight with even bigger giants than I face. So yeah, definitely go check. What's the channel called? Tech Quotes. That's the one. Check him out and take a look at the video. I was going to buy 4080 on release as well. Not sure if I should. Good question. I think wait for the reviews to come out on the AMD cards, and then you'll be able to see how they compare. Because if especially the XTX, which I think is priced very closely to the 4080, that is looks to be very impressive from the spec sheet, if nothing else. I can't wait. That's one of those you'll have to make the tough decision then. I mean, to make it clear, 4080 is going to be a great card. You're going to get fantastic performance. It's going to be perfectly playable all the way up to 4K. High settings, whatever you want. It's it's still going to be a great card. It's just whether you can get better value for money from, AMD instead, right? But the thing that is often lost is it's not like the 4080 is now a pointless waste of space and should never exist. It's still a great piece of tech. It's just there's potentially a better value for money. I have a 3080 Ti already, tempted at a 3090 Ti, but might as well go for a 4080. I mean, fair. That's a lot better than most can afford. And hello, Joe. I just got in from work doing extra hours to raise funds for the funeral. How you doing? Have I missed much? Well, first of all, apologies or condolences again. And second of all, I am meh. And third, have I missed much? AMD just announced their new 17900 XT and XTX cards with very aggressive price tags, very impressive performance improvements, and FSR 3.0, which is weird because 2.0 is still kind of rolling out, with up to 2 times more performance, which is pretty impressive, and hopefully visual quality improvements as well. So yeah. Price may go down the 4080. I doubt it would go down immediately at launch. I think there's likely going to be a delay between launch pricing and any price adjustments, let's say. Because even if you look at the 4090 launch, there were people queued around the door for that, around the block, as they say, for that card at that insane price tag, and so they have no incentive to drop the price on the 4080 until demand drops for it, and then they drop the price. Going in all guns blazing then. Yes. It seems so. Gonna have to queue from a 4080, no chance of beating a bot. Sadly, yes, you're right. Fair play. My 2080 Super is just fine for me. Yeah, it's like I said, the cards that still exist are still perfectly fine. I only recommend updating or upgrading if you actively are hurting for performance. If you play a game, you want to play it at a certain setting level, a certain resolution, and you're just not getting an enjoyable experience anymore, then sure, it's probably time for an upgrade. But if you're just upgrading for the sake of upgrading, then it's your money. Do what you want, right? But I wouldn't actively recommend upgrading. I wouldn't recommend spending your money if you don't you actually need to, right? So yeah, 2080 Super is still perfectly fine. There's a load of other cards. Depends what games you play and what monitors you have and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I think that I will leave that there. I thank you very much for watching. As always, these are every Thursday night at 8 PM UK time, so if you want to pop back next week, feel free. And yeah, I hope you have a good week and stay safe. If you want to pre-order one of the cards from someone like Overclockers, there's a link in the description. Yeah, I'll catch you guys next week. And obviously videos tomorrow and Monday and hopefully Tuesday for At the Wheel if I work something out. But yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.